Data collection, questionnaire or schedule. It's a tool of data collection which is commonly used by the researchers. Most of the researchers use this tool for primary data collection. Before going to details of construction of questionnaire or schedule, we can know what is data, types of data, and sources of data. After that, we can move to designing questionnaire or schedule. First, we have to know what is data. Data is piece of information. It can be quantitative or qualitative. Data is plural form of datum. Datum, the word has been derived from the Latin language, which literally means to give or something given. The data can be numbers. It can be numbers, images, words, figures, facts, or ideas. It may be anything. Then we should know what is data collection. This is purposive gathering of data required for our study. That is data collection. A purposive gathering of information relevant to the subject matter of the study is called data collection or data mining. After knowing all this, we should know at what stage we can start data collection. Generally, what the researchers tend to do after the registration, they start for data collection. Whether it may be a secondary data or primary data, they immediately move to data collection, the data collection activity. Data collection is one of the important steps in research. First, we have to define our research problem. Then, we have to complete our research review of literature. And then, formulate hypothesis. Then, writing research design. After that, only we have to go for data collection. After data collection, we have to analyze the data and interpretation and report writing. This data collection is one of the important steps in the research process. This is not an initial stage activity. Based on the nature of data and mode of collection, the data can be classified as primary data and secondary data. Primary data which are collected for the first time by the researcher based on his requirement are called primary data. Secondary data are collected, compiled or written by others. Primary data are collected by researcher himself based on his requirement, whereas secondary data are collected by others. Here, the researcher has to choose whether he has to use the primary data or secondary data or combination of all these two. That depends upon his research problem. If his research problem requires both, he can go for both using secondary data as well as primary data. If the study requires only secondary data, he has to use secondary data. Otherwise, he has to go for primary data. So, based on the researcher's requirement, the data can be collected. This is about primary and secondary data. What are the differences we can know here? Primary data are always original and it is collected by the researcher. Whereas secondary data lacks originality. The researcher makes use of data collected by other agencies. What are the other agencies we can know afterwards. The primary data is suitable to the study as it is systematically collected by the researcher. It is suitable to the researcher, so the research problem. Primary data, whereas in case of secondary data, it may or may not suit the objectives of the study. We have to make use of that, and based on the availability of secondary data, we have to use it. Primary data are expensive and time consuming. They are expensive and time consuming. Whereas secondary data are relatively cheaper. It doesn't require much money and time. As they are, most of the secondary data are published. Extra precautions are not required. It is used, whereas in case of secondary data, it is used with a great care and caution. You have to make use of it and analyze according to our research purpose. And the primary data are in the shape of raw material. You have to analyze it and get the findings. Whereas secondary data are usually in the shape of ready-made products, already published and ready-made. Possibility of personal prejudice is always there in the case of primary data, whereas it is not there in secondary data. What are the advantages and disadvantages? We can see. Advantages: answers, primary data answers specific questions and issues. Based on it answers specific questions and answers. Whereas secondary data, it covers broad areas like income, expenditure, allocations, like that. Tailor-made, no problem of adjustment. Based on our requirement, we collect data. And confidential, gives competitive edge. Whereas in secondary data, as a good starting point, we can collect and go for primary data collection, usually available immediately. These are the advantages, and what are the disadvantages? What are the difficulties? The primary data are expensive and time consuming, whereas the secondary data are not specific and not exactly what you want. Not confidential, out of date, sometime, many times. These are the differences between primary data and secondary data. Then, what are the sources of secondary data? Government publications, international bodies, semi-government publications, reports of committee and commissions, private publications, newspapers, magazines and journals, and publications of the researchers. These are the published sources of secondary data, and the secondary data are also sometimes we get unpublished in the form of unpublished. There are certain records maintained properly by the government agencies, private offices and firms. These data are not published. Thus, there are published sources of secondary data and unpublished sources of secondary data. Now we know that what is data, types of data, what are the differences, advantages and disadvantages of primary data and secondary data. After knowing that, we can discuss construction of schedule or questionnaire. As I told, questionnaire is the most common data collection instrument. It was invented in the year 1838 by the Statistical Society of London. It was used to study the health status of industrial workers. The questionnaire consists of series of questions for the purpose of gathering information from respondents. It consists of series of questions like this. This consists of number of questions related to the study, and it is useful to collect a qualitative as well as quantitative as well as qualitative data. Quantitative we can collect qualitative ಮತ್ತು quantitative data ನಾವು collect ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. And what is difference between schedule and questionnaire? People quite commonly use questionnaire and schedule interchangeably. Schedule and questionnaire, they are used commonly, but there are some differences. What are they? You can know. Difference between schedule and questionnaire. Know what is questionnaire and schedule. Questionnaire is generally sent through mail. Their schedule and questionnaire are interchangeably used. Many people think that they are same. This is schedule. This is schedule. If I send it by mail or post, that is called questionnaire. This is schedule. If I send it by post or mail, it is called questionnaire. A schedule is generally filled by the research worker or administrator. In case of schedule, what we do, we go to the field and ask the respondent the questions, relevant questions, and responses are recorded. Okay? This is done in the case of schedule. Whereas in case of questionnaire, we send the same format to the respondent, and we assume that he will read and give the responses to these questions, and he will send it back to us. The contents are same in both in schedule or questionnaire. Therefore they are used interchangeably. In case of questionnaire, data collection is cheap and economical. If I send it by mail, it doesn't require much money, much time. Whereas if I use schedule, I have to go to the field, I have to spend lot of money and time for data collection in case of schedule. ಇದೇ ನಾನು ಮೇಲ್ ಹಾಕಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it doesn't require much money or time. In case of questionnaire, non-response is very usually high. ನಾವು ಕಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ನಮಗೂ ಬಂದಿರ್ತವೆ, ಇರ್ಲಿ ಬಿಡಪ್ಪ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಕಾಣದ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. Therefore, the non-response is very high in case of questionnaire. In case of schedule, it is very low because the researcher himself will go and collect data. In case of questionnaire, it is not clear that who replies. If I receive a schedule questionnaire, I may ask some other to answer it and send it to the researcher. In case of a schedule, ideally the respondent is known. No personal contact is possible with the respondent in case of questionnaire, whereas direct personal contact is established in case of schedule. This method, questionnaire, can be used only when respondents are literate and cooperative. When respondents are literate and cooperative, then only we can use questionnaire. They should be literate and cooperative. Otherwise, we will not get responses. The information in case of schedule, that information can be gathered even when the respondents happen to be illiterate. Even farmers, laborers, we can go and collect the information from that. Even though they are illiterate and sometimes non-cooperative, we can go and convince them and get the accurate data. Questionnaire, wider and more representative distribution of sample is possible. No, in case of schedule, we have to spend a lot of money and time. If we send them the questionnaire to respondent located at different places, we can get easily. So, wider and more representative distribution of sample is possible. And in case of the schedule, there remains a difficulty in sending the enumerators over the relative wider area because it involves a lot of cost. Risk of collecting incomplete and wrong information is relatively more in questionnaire method. Sometimes what we do, if we find it difficult to answer, we will skip that and send it back. Whereas it is here in case of schedule, the researcher ensures all the questions are answered. The success of questionnaire methods lies more on the quality of the questionnaire itself. The quality, the attractiveness, the quality of questions. That depends. Whereas in case of schedule, it depends upon the honesty and the competence of enumerators. The researcher is competent, he can get the data, even though it is not attractive. Physical appearance of a questionnaire must be quite attractive. It may not be the case in case of schedule. Thus, there are differences. Main difference is if it is sent by mail or post, it is called questionnaire. if the researcher himself goes and collects this information, then it is called schedule. This is the main difference. But method of constructing the questionnaire and schedule, they are same. Only difference is it is sent by mail. In case of schedule, the researcher himself goes and collects.
Contents will be same, sir.
Contents will be same. Same questions. ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ಲ? Next. Then we can go for construction of questionnaire or schedule. What is the first step in designing questionnaire or schedule? First, our objectives or hypothesis of the study should be specific and clear. ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಮಗೆ ಪೂರ್ಣ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we cannot construct a questionnaire or schedule. What are our objectives, our hypothesis? We should know. We should prepare. After that only we can go for construction of questionnaire or schedule. ಹೌದಾ? This will help to know what information is needed and to identify the key variables and concepts to be measured. First, we should have specific objectives and clear objectives. Objective ಮತ್ತು hypothesis ನಾವು ಏನು ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಯಾವ ಡೇಟಾ ಬೇಕು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಅನ್ನೋದು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬೋದು. ಅವೇ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. Then we have to review the literature. Literature review is very important stage. It helps the researchers to identify the issues covered and what are the concepts used and what are the variables collected by the previous studies. ಇದರಿಂದ based on the after reviewing literature we can prepare a list of variables, the required variables, data to be collected. Objective wise, data required we can prepare after the review of literature. The literature review also helps us to know what are the methods of data collection used in the previous studies. Whether they have used a schedule or questionnaire, whether they have used schedule or some focus group discussions, like that. What are the methods they have used, we can know. And we can also know what types of questions they have used. ಯಾವ ಟೈಪ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಅವರು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಯಾರ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಸಹ ನಾವು ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ ರಿವ್ಯೂದಿಂದ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. We can know what type of questions the researcher has used in their studies. They may be open-ended questions like what are the biggest challenges in millet farming? Open-ended questions. Anything they can answer. Close-ended questions Do you have bank account? Yes or no? Likert scale questions. Rate of effectiveness of financial inclusion policies. Good, very good, bad, very bad, like that. And whether they have used multiple choice questions. What type of questions they have used, you can understand after reviewing literature. Which storage facility do you use? Here multiple choices are given. Warehouse, cold storage, open storage, like that. And they may also ask demographic questions, age of the respondent, like that. We can also know selection of sample who participate in the society, in the study. Suppose we are studying value chain analysis of, we are conducting the study on value chain analysis of some millets. The literature may suggest us to collect data from farmers, middlemen, traders, like that. Thus, a literature review helps the researcher to discover issues covered, concepts used, methods of data collection, variables used, types of questions, and selection of samples. So, after completing your literature only, you have to go for data collection. Otherwise, you cannot achieve if you go. So, yes, Indian bakery.
Not cookies. No, sir.
Thus, literature review is important, very important. After literature review only, we have to go for data collection, especially primary data collection. After literature review, you should start developing questions. After that, you have to start developing questions. Use short and simple sentences to avoid ambiguity. The questions should be short and unambiguous. You should not word confusing words, phrases in that. Use simple sentences that the questions should be understandable. The researcher as well as the respondent should understand these questions. Then only he can answer correctly. We can get correct responses. So, use short and simple sentences to avoid ambiguity. For example, have you been to the cinema recently? In the cinema ಒಂದು 20 ವರ್ಷದ ಹಿಂದೆ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೆ ಅಂತ ಅವಾಗ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮದು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಇರೋದು 1 ವರ್ಷ ಅಥವಾ 1 ತಿಂಗಳು ಏನೋ ಇರಬಹುದು. ಸೊ you have to ask, have you been to cinema in the last 2 weeks? Here you will get more exact results. Then another example, how much you spend on your child's overall development. What is overall development? that is not specific. So we have to ask in a different way, how much you spend per month on your child's tuition fee, on your child's health, education, like that we have to ask. ಈ ಥರ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ we can get the exact answers. So questions should be short and unambiguous. Ask for only one piece of information at a time. Only one piece of information. ಒಮ್ಮೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ರೊಟ್ಟಿ ಬೇಕು ಚಪಾತಿ ಬೇಕು ಎರಡು ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವು ಮತ್ತೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ರೊಟ್ಟಿ ಬೇಕಂತ ಹಿಂಗ they cannot answer, they cannot give exact answer, you cannot get the required answer. So ask only one piece of information at a time. Example, do you think the urban people should eat less and exercise more? Should eat, exercise more. Instead of that, you can ask, do you think urban people should eat less? Yes or no? Maton question, no, do you think the urban people should exercise more? Hige, we can ask one piece of information at a time. Question. Questions should be specific to yield exact answers. This will help in tabulation. Do you use banking services often? Vague questions you should avoid. How many times? Instead of that, you can ask how many times per month do you visit bank or use net banking. ಹೀಗೆ specific answer ಬರುವಂಗೆ we should frame the questions. Leading questions. ಈಗ all questions which produce biased answers may be regarded as leading questions. ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಹೆಂಗಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, do you regularly visit library? ಸೊ ನೀವು ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿ ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರ, ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲ ಲೈಬ್ರರಿನ ನೋಡಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂತೀವಿ, ಲೈಬ್ರರಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿದಂತೂ ಸಹಿತ ನೋಡಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಎಸ್. ಇಂಥ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಲೀಡಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್. ಅಥವಾ ವೈಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾನೇನು, ಎಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಹೀಗೆ these are called leading questions. You should try to avoid these type of questions. ಆಮೇಲೆ choice of questions ನೋಡೋಣ. The researcher should include only such questions as have a direct bearing on problem itself, on the evaluation of methodology or method forward. Direct study related questions ಮಾತ್ರ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿರಿ. ಮುಂದೆ ಅದು ನನಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಹಿಂದಡೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಇರಲಿ ಅಂತ ತನಕ ಇರಲಿ, ಹಿಂದಡೆ ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ ಅಂಥ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ. Questions whose answers can be secured more accurately and effectively from other sources may be excluded. Suppose if we want to collect a data something on something, if it is available, secondary data is available, the required secondary data is available, we should use that only instead of getting primary sources. Selection of questions should be done with an eye on the subsequent tabulation plan. After while framing questions, what should be the tabulation plan? You should assume and plan it. While developing the schedule or questionnaire, other studies or surveys, comparable material should be kept in mind. As far as feasible, identical items, terms, definitions, quantitative units of measurement should be used after the so that you can compare your results with other results. So use identical terms. And care should be taken while asking personal questions or those which may embarrass the respondent. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಅದ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾವನು ಹೇಳೋದು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಆರಾಮಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಒಂದು ನಾವೊಂದು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆವು ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಡೆವಲಪಿಂಗ್ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ 12ದಾಗ ನಾವು 2012 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸು ಮಹಾರಾಷ್ಟ್ರದಾಗ ನಾಸಿಕ್ ಮುಂಬೈ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಹೋಗಿದ್ರು ಸೇಮ್ ಕ್ವಶನೇರು ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಆರಾಮದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡಿಸಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಆರಾಮದೇನೋ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದರು. ಅವ್ರು ಯಾರೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದರು. ಇನ್ ಪೇಷಂಟು ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಔಟ್ ಪೇಷಂಟು ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಹೀಗಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ನಾವು ಹೋಗಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಕ್ವಶನೇರ್ ರೆಡಿ ಇದ್ರೂ ಅವ್ರು ಹಂಗೆ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು, ಆರಾಮಿಲ್ದವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾರು ಹೇಳ್ರಿ ಅಂತ. ಹೀಗಾಗಿ we should avoid personal questions. For example, do you have any sexually transmitted diseases? Direct ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅವು ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ. ಏನಾದರೂ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಅದರದ್ದು ಏನಂದರೆ ಅದರದ್ದು ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಏನು ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Have you undergone any routine health checkups last year? ಹೀಗೆ ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಸೆನ್ಸಿಟಿವ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್. ಏನಾದರೂ ಲೋನ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಸಾಲಿಗೆ ತೀರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ ಎ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ವೇ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಆರ್ ಲೈಕ್ಲಿ ಟು ಯೀಲ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ಅಕ್ಯುರೇಟ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಸ್. ಶುಡ್ ಡು ಯು ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಥವೆಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ ನೋಡಿಕೊಂಡು ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಫ್ರೇಮ್ ದ ಕ್ವಶನ್. Questions which involve too much mental effort on the part of informant should be avoided. ಇದು ಇನ್ಕಮ್ಮು ಅಥವಾ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರು, ಟೋಟಲ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಕೇಳಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ದೇ ಆರ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಡ್, ಬಟ್ ದ ವೇ ಆಫ್ ಆಸ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ very appropriate. Otherwise we will not get exact income or expenditure, because it involves lot of calculations. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದಷ್ಟು ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಸರಿಯಾದ ಅಪ್ರೋಪ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ವೇ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಆಸ್ಕ್. Ensure those you ask have the necessary knowledge.
ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು ಸರ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಆಸ್ಕ್ ದಿ ಇನ್ಕಮ್
Total income of the, instead of that you may ask person wise or source wise, like that you have to directly. If you ask the total income of the family, they may give wrong information. Instead of that, and we have to ask the knowledgeable person only. ಯಾರನ್ನೂ ನಾವು ಕೇಳಬೇಕಂತ ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ಸ್ದು ನಾವು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ತೊಗೊಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾರೋ ಮತ್ತು ಹುಡುಗರು ಯಾರು ಹಂಗೆ ಅಡ್ಡಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ದೊಡ್ಡವರು ಇರ್ತಾರೋ ಅಂಥವ್ರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕೇಳಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ದೇ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ಸ್. ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ಸ್, ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ದೇ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ಸ್. ಸೊ that leads to we cannot, in that case we cannot get exact answers. So we have to contact knowledgeable persons.
ಈಗ ಅದನ್ನ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡೋದು ಸರ್? ಹೌ ಟು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್?
No, we have to ask some questions
Basic
like
questions.
that. We have to introduce ourselves and some ask. We have to ask some basic questions, and for that we can initiate
Yes.
asking questions. Use of appropriate type of questions. There are different types of questions, like contingency questions or cascade format. A question that is answered only if the respondent gives a particular response to a previous question. This avoids asking questions to people that do not apply to them. For example, do you use storage facilities for agriculture produce? If he says yes, you have to go for next question. So, if yes, what type of storage do you use? It may be warehousing, multiple choice question. Warehouse, cold storage, on-farm storage, others specify. If he says no, then he has to answer other question. What are the reasons for not using storage facilities? It may be high storage cost, lack of nearby storage units, no need for storage, and others. Likewise, we may use contingency questions or cascade questions. It saves the respondent's time, skips irrelevant questions,
enhance
enhance applicability of.
ಇದು PPT ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್? ಈ PPT ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್? ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಿಷಯ.
It is recorded and it will be uploaded.
ಹಾಂ ಸರ್, ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಸರ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್.
ಮ್ಯಾಟ್ರಿಕ್ಸ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ? ಮ್ಯಾಟ್ರಿಕ್ಸ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್. Identical response categories are assigned to multiple questions. Identical response categories. Identical response: strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree, like that. Assigned to multiple questions: opening a bank account, banking services, digital banking. These are questions, identical answers. This is matrix type questions. Place one another for forming a matrix with the response category along with top and the list of questions down the side. This is an efficient use of page space and student's time. It saves lot of space in the questionnaire. ಒಂದೊಂದೇ ಬರೆದರೆ it requires lot of space. If you give it in a matrix type, it saves lot of space, and immediately we can compare the responses also. Then we can have closed-ended questions like yes/no questions, multiple choice questions. 3-4 responses are given. The scaled questions, responses are given on a certain scale: good, bad, very good, like that, regular, irregular, like that. And we may also include some open-ended questions. The option categories are not suggested because you have to go for statistical analysis. No, the respondent replies in their own words without being constrained by a fixed set of possible responses. ನಮಗೆ ಏನಾಯ್ತು, ಮೊದಲೇ ಏನಾಯ್ತು, ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗಿವನ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ he can answer anything, open-ended. For example, can you describe the main difficulties you faced when selling your merit produce. Open-ended. He can answer anything. So, a combination of these questions you can put in appropriate places in the questionnaire or schedule. Then, special attention must be given to sequence of questions. After framing questions, we have to arrange them in a sequence. General to particular, easy to difficult questions, factual to abstract, start with closed format questions, just no type, then multiple, then open-ended. Like that, you have to arrange these questions. And these questions can be grouped like in three categories, like identifying information questions, like here we have used district, block, village, street, house number, identification information questions. Then after that we have included social background related questions, like name of the farmer, age, gender, education status, religion, caste, family type, details of dwelling, asset holding. Like that, we have to include socio-economic the background required questions. Then we have to club all the questions in the subject matter of the survey. The questions directly related to the study topic. Thus, we can group these questions in three categories. And we can also include questions for checking accuracy and consistency. Replies should be included. Questions that bring out the same facts but worded differently and placed in a different sections of the questionnaire afford a check on the internal consistency of replies. For example, do you use storage facility for your produce? Yes or no? Then we can ask how much rent do you pay on storage. If a respondent says no in question 1, do you use storage facility? No ಅಂತಂದು ಇಲ್ಲ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತಂದಿದ್ರೆ that is inconsistent question. We have to check the responses. But still provides a rent amount in question 2, there is contradiction. ಅವಾಗ ನಾವು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಡೇಟಾ ಸರಿ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. This helps reduces contradictory responses, identify errors, ensures meaningful conclusions. After developing questions and grouping them, we have to develop a response format. Yes, no, multiple answers. So, we have to develop a response format. The researcher must have some insight into the process of human communication and thinking must be given. You have to anticipate a type of responses. For this question, this type of question, what will be the responses? The researcher should know. Yes, no, or multiple answers. What are the responses? The researcher should understand. After that, the question must allow for all possible responses. After giving 3-4 options, we have to keep Space for others. Don't know, no choice, doubtful. Others specify. ठीक है. Thus we have to develop response format. Questions आतो?
layout of the
हाँ? Response format आतो. Questionnaire layout ಹೆಂಗಿರಬೇಕು? It should be attractive. ಏನೋ ಕಸರ ಪಕ್ಷ ಏನು ತೊಗೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಇವನ್ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ನಾವೇ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ರೂ ಇಂಥ ಕಗ್ಗಿ ಇತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೋ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ನನಗೆ ಬ್ಯಾಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇವನ್ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್. ಮೋರ್ ಸೊ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ವಶನೇರ್ ಇತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಮೋರ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್. Then only the respondents takes interest and give response. Other either attractive ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಾರೆ ನಡಿ ಕಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಹಾಕಿ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಡಿತಾ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. Then we cannot give the responses. The amount of writing required on the schedule should be minimum. ಭಾಳ ಬರೆಯೋದಿರಬಾರ್ದು. ಟಿಕ್ ಮಾರ್ಕು ಅಥವಾ 1-2 amount of writing should be minimum, and length of questionnaire should be optimal. ಆಗ್ತಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಒಂದು 15-20 ಪೇಜ್ ಹೊರಕೊಡಬಾರ್ದು. ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಆಪ್ಟಿಮಲ್, and it should include introduction, instructions, codes, space to answer, investigator name, like that. Here we have given all those. Adequate space we have given, codes we have given, and the investigator name, details of like that. Here we have tried to make the schedule more effective. Thus, the layout of questionnaire should be more attractive, and should be optimal, and necessary instructions needs to be given in that. After that, we have to pre-test the questionnaire. What is the purpose ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, the questions are properly formed. Whether the questions are properly formed or not, we have to check. Wordings of questions. Questions have been placed in the best order. The questions are understood by respondents. The questions, they should be understood by respondents. Additional or specifying questions are needed, or some needs to be eliminated. Additional or extra questions are eliminated. Instructions to field with investigators are adequate. You don't know course instructions ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟದೇ ಇಲ್ಲೋ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಗೇಟರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಈಗ ಪ್ರೀ-ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೊದಲು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ರೀ-ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ select the sample similar in socio-economic background and geographical location which is intended to be used in the main survey. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸರ್ವೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, we have to pre-test in the same area only. Investigator should note down the remarks of respondents about understanding of words. ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲೋ, ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸು, ರೆಲೆವೆನ್ಸ್. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಇರ್ರೆಲೆವೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿರ್ಬೋದು ನಾವು ಆ ಏರಿಯಾಕ್ಕೆ. ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದು ಇರಿಗೇಷನ್ ಇರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇರಿಗೇಷನ್ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು 2-3 ಪೇಜ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಹೀಗೆಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಹಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ಅವೇನೋ ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟರ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟ್, ಚೆಕ್ ದ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ಸ್. Then we should know what are the good qualities of questionnaire. Internal instructions ಇರಬೇಕು, ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್, ಫಾಂಟ್ ಸೈಜಸ್ ಟೈಪು, ಗ್ರಾಮರ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್, ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ, ಕಲರ್, ಸೈಜ್, ಫಾಂಟ್ಸ್, ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ look here, we have collected cost of cultivation of various crops for different seasons in different seasons. Here we have given adequate time, space to write the cost. Internal clarity and simplicity of questions. Clear and simple. Validity and reliability questions ಇರಬೇಕು. As per current situation of area under discussion, questions should be related to that study area. Divisions are as per objectives of objective, cost of cultivation, value of production, marketing. Different questions separate categories ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಬೇಕು. Then we have to go to after that we have to go for pilot study. These are the good qualities of questionnaire or schedule. Thus, researcher have choice between primary data and secondary data or use of both. ಯಾವ ಡೇಟಾ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, whether to you go for secondary data, primary data or both, that depends upon your research problem. And questionnaire is the most common data collection instrument. It must be carefully designed to yield information. Meticulous attention must be paid to ensure that individual questions are relevant, suitable, logical, precise and unbiased. Questionnaires must be pre-tested before actual survey. It should help researcher to obtain accurate and relevant data. It should help researcher to obtain accurate and relevant data. Then only it is called good questionnaire. A well-structured questionnaire improves the accuracy and reliability of research findings. It should be clear, concise and relevant to the study objectives. So, the quality of your data depends upon the quality of your instrument, data collection instrument. So, meticulous attention should be given in preparation of questionnaire or schedule. If you fail to prepare a good quality questionnaire, you may not succeed in your research. You may not achieve your objectives. So this is important step. Construction of questionnaire or schedule is the important activity in the research. So this is very important. Thank you. After that we can go for
Sir, question. Doubt ಇದೆ
close this.